On a freezing winter plain, with winds slicing across the land, a Lakota warrior stood tall, his braids whipping in the storm. To most eyes, it was just hair. But here's the catch, it was never just hair. Among native people, every strand carried memory, identity, and spirit. Cutting it was like cutting away part of the soul. Here's the twist. For centuries, this sacred bond was attacked. In government boarding schools, places like Carlisle and beyond, native children had their hair cut the moment they arrived. Imagine being 7 years old, your braids still damp from morning dew, and suddenly, snip. The sound of scissors wasn't just the sound of hair falling, it was the sound of culture being stripped away. You wouldn't believe this part, many elders still say the pain of that first haircut hurt more than hunger or cold. But why did hair hold such power that authorities feared it? For the Lakota, long hair meant clarity of mind and connection to the Creator. For the Apache, hair flowing freely symbolized life energy moving with the wind. Among many tribes, braids tied body, spirit, and community together, each twist binding them closer to ancestors. Strangely, researchers today are finding hints that confirm this belief. Modern science describes hair as a sensory extension of the nervous system, amplifying awareness of the environment. Here's the strange part. It suggests what native people always understood spiritually may also be true biologically. And yet, history delivered its deepest wounds not through war, but through scissors. Cutting hair voluntarily, in mourning, was sacred, a sign of grief and healing. For families, each snip carried the weight of grief. But when cut by force, it was humiliation, a violation of both the person and the community. Here's the painful irony. What native people once gave freely as a symbol of loss was stolen as a tool of domination. But resilience ran deep. From powwow grounds to protest lines, native hair became a banner of survival. Warriors who once hid braids in shame later wore them in defiance. What was silenced began speaking again through strands that refused to be cut. And here's where the story grips you. The next chapter may change how you see a single strand of hair forever. When you step into the world of native tradition, hair quickly reveals itself as more than appearance. It was spirit made visible. For the Lakota, hair was a symbol of the mind's clarity, each strand holding thoughts like threads in a tapestry. For the Diné, or Navajo, hair tied into a tsiiyéél, a bun at the back of the head, represented harmony with the universe. For the Apache, loose hair blowing in the wind symbolized life force itself, moving, breathing, alive. Here's the twist. Hair was never just personal, it was communal. Braids were often woven by family members, each twist binding not only hair but kinship and prayer. Elders whispered blessings into the strands, so children carried protection wherever they went. Hair itself became a living shield. Symbols carried deep weight. In many Plains cultures, cutting hair voluntarily meant mourning. A widow, a parent, or a warrior grieving a fallen comrade might cut their braids short, carrying sorrow openly on their head. This wasn't vanity, it was vulnerability turned sacred. Each snip was a wordless announcement. I have lost. I grieve. For outsiders, it was hair. But for native families, it was language. Here's the strange part. Hair also served as identity across distances. Warriors on horseback could be recognized not only by clothing, but by the length and style of their hair. A long braid could announce bravery. Hair bound with red ochre might signal readiness for battle. In that sense, hair was a banner carried on the body, both silent and loud at once. Here's the unexpected link. Many tribes saw hair as connected to nature itself. Flowing hair mirrored rivers, braids mirrored roots of trees. Cutting it was like severing roots from soil. Elders often warned, respect your hair, for it ties you to the land. And here's the wow, science. Modern research shows hair preserves traces of DNA and even records of the environment, from minerals to pollutants. In other words, hair literally holds memory, just as native people always said it did spiritually. This creates an aha shift. In native cultures, hair carried knowledge both symbolic and practical. A lock of hair might be offered to fire, releasing prayers in smoke. In healing rituals, strands tied with herbs could draw sickness away. Hair was not an accessory, but a vessel of memory, medicine, and meaning. In contrast, Western culture often treats hair as fashion, cut, dyed, and styled to follow trends. For native people, hair was truth. Its length spoke of patience, its care spoke of respect, its loss spoke of sorrow. Each strand was history, identity, and spirit intertwined. And here's the cliffhanger. If hair embodied all this, mind, spirit, nature, then how did communities practice and protect it daily? That's the journey waiting in the next chapter. To truly understand native hair, you have to look at the ways it was shaped, styled, and adorned. Each braid, each bead, each feather told a story. Here's the catch. What may look like decoration to outsiders was often a living code of culture, identity, and spirituality. For the Plains tribes like the Lakota, hair was commonly worn in 2 long braids, sometimes wrapped in otter fur or bound with strips of leather. These braids were not only practical, keeping hair neat during hunting or battle, but symbolic. Each strand woven together represented unity, the idea that strength came from connection. Warriors who returned from war might let their hair flow loose, a visible sign of freedom and power. Among the Navajo, the tsiiyéél was tied with a special string spun from wool and often secured with care by family members. This bun wasn't just a hairstyle, it was a declaration of harmony. A Navajo person waking each morning to tie their hair was, in effect, reaffirming balance with the world. And here's the twist. Decoration mattered as much as style. Beads, shells, and quills often adorned braids. Feathers, especially eagle feathers, were powerful markers of honor. You wouldn't believe this. Receiving a single eagle feather could take years, granted only for acts of bravery or service. To wear one was to carry a medal of the highest respect. Some beads were traded across thousands of miles, carrying stories from distant tribes. Some tribes used paint and ochre in their hair, especially during ceremonies or war. Red ochre could symbolize readiness for battle, black for spiritual protection, yellow for prayer. Hair itself became a canvas, carrying messages visible from a distance. In powwows today, you still see echoes of these traditions, with dancers weaving ribbons and feathers into braids, each piece carrying its own story. Here's the unexpected part. Rituals of cutting hair were just as significant as wearing it. In mourning, a man might shear his braids short to honor a loved one who had passed, carrying his grief for all to see. But outside mourning, cutting hair without cause was almost unthinkable. That's why forced haircuts in schools cut so deep. They violated not just the body, but the ritual calendar of life. Daily care mattered too. Native people treated hair with natural oils and herbs. Sweetgrass, sage, and cedar were burned in smudging ceremonies, their smoke cleansing not only the spirit but the hair itself. Some used bear grease to smooth braids, both nourishing and protective against wind and dryness. Science might call it practical, but families saw it as ceremony woven into routine. Let's not forget the social aspect. Braiding hair was often done by mothers, sisters, or grandmothers. Sitting together, hands weaving strands became a moment of teaching, storytelling, and bonding. Here's the timeless part. These bonds outlasted centuries of oppression. A child did not just leave with neat braids, they carried the wisdom of family woven into their head. Even today, these tools and practices carry force. In modern powwows, braids wrapped with ribbons stand tall against neon lights. Feathers rise proudly above the crowd, glowing in motion. What once faced erasure is now reclaimed. Each bead, each braid, each strand carries a message that speaks across centuries, and it says, simply but powerfully, "We are still here." And that sets up the next question. How were these practices lived daily through the routines of survival, ceremony, and resilience? To see that, we must step into the lived behaviors of native communities. If tools and styles revealed the meaning of native hair, then daily behavior showed how deeply it was lived. Hair was not only braided, decorated, or cut in ritual. It was practiced in ways that shaped family life, ceremonies, and even survival itself. Here's the catch. Hairstyling was never a solitary act. Braiding was often done in groups, with children sitting between the knees of mothers, sisters, or grandmothers. Hands moved patiently, strands woven tight, while stories, prayers, and teachings flowed alongside the motion. In that sense, a hairstyle was also a classroom. You wouldn't believe this. Many elders say their first lessons in respect, patience, and history were learned not in school, but in the rhythm of hair being braided. Ritual life carried its own behaviors. In ceremonies, hair was sometimes untied to release energy, then braided again to restore balance. Warriors preparing for battle might paint or bind their hair in specific ways, aligning their spirit with their purpose. For the Dine, tying the tsiiyéél bun each morning wasn't just grooming, it was a ritual of balance, a quiet renewal of harmony with the universe. And here's the twist. Even the act of mourning carried strict behaviors. Families who lost loved ones often cut their hair short, a public signal of grief. During this time, they avoided certain activities. Some would not dance, sing, or take part in celebrations until their hair grew back. The regrowth itself marked the slow return of joy. In this way, hair tracked the calendar of the heart. Daily care also mattered. Washing and oiling hair wasn't only about hygiene, it was tied to respect. Some families used herbal rinses from sage or cedar. Others combed hair with carved wooden tools passed down through generations. Here's the strange part. Archaeologists have found combs centuries old, still bearing wear marks, proof that even simple grooming carried the weight of tradition. Hair also shaped identity in public spaces. In gatherings, the way a person wore their hair could signal status, role, or readiness. Long braids for warriors, special bindings for dancers, short hair for mourners. Each style a message. It was a living language, understood without words. Here's the unexpected link. This language of hair also resisted oppression. In boarding schools, native children were forced to cut their hair. Yet many families quietly resisted. Some saved locks in secret. Others buried them with prayers or braided again as soon as children returned home. Behaviors like these kept tradition alive even in the face of erasure. The social dimension was equally powerful. At powwows, dancers prepared together, helping each other braid and decorate hair before stepping into the circle. For many, this preparation was as meaningful as the dance itself. It was a way of saying, I carry my people with me. I do not enter alone. Here's the living proof. Braids still march into stadiums and classrooms today. Even in modern times, the behaviors endure. Athletes from native communities wear braids in competition. Students fight for the right to keep long hair in schools. Activists march with braids swaying, a statement of survival. Here's the timeless part. What was once nearly erased has become a flag of identity, carried into every arena of modern life. So behavior was not small detail, it was survival. Every braid woven, every bun tied, every feather placed was an act of practice, persistence, and quiet defiance. And that brings us to the heart of the story. What did these behaviors achieve? What benefits did they bring, not just to individuals, but to entire communities? If behaviors showed how hair was lived, the benefits reveal why it mattered so deeply. Hair was not vanity. It was survival, strength, and spirit all woven together. Here's what's surprising. Native hairstyles often demanded fewer resources than modern grooming. A braid could last days without constant cutting or shaving. In harsh environments, this saved time and energy, allowing communities to focus on hunting, farming, or ceremony. But the benefits went far beyond practicality. Long hair carried warmth, protecting ears and neck through biting winds. Oils from herbs and bear grease shielded strands from dryness, keeping them strong in extreme climates. You wouldn't believe this. Some tribes even wrapped hair with fur during deep winter, turning braids into natural insulation. Here's the deeper part. Hair maintained health not just of the body, but of the spirit. Families say children with braided hair carried prayers wherever they went, a quiet layer of resilience. Elders believed long hair strengthened memory and balance. Science today echoes this. Hair literally records diet, environment, and health over time. Astonishingly, scientists can read decades of nutritional changes from a single strand. Each lock is both living body and historical archive. The social benefits were equally powerful. Braiding created intimacy, passing knowledge through touch and time. In those quiet moments, history was taught, respect reinforced, love reaffirmed. Here's the twist. Something as simple as a braid became one of the strongest threads holding culture together. Hair also gave visibility. Warriors recognized across fields by their braids, leaders marked by decorated buns, mourners known instantly by short hair. Without a word spoken, identity and role were understood. This reduced conflict, created cohesion, and deepened trust inside communities. And here's the unexpected benefit. In the face of colonization, hair became resistance. To wear it long today is to reject erasure, to declare survival. Students who win the right to braid in schools send a powerful message. Activists who march with braids swaying carry defiance in every step. Athletes competing with long hair prove that tradition can stand proud in modern arenas. In the end, the benefits of native hair were never just physical. They were cultural, communal, and spiritual. Braids carried warmth, identity, and prayer. They preserved memory and embodied resistance. And they offered something Western culture often overlooked: the reminder that strength grows not in isolation, but in strands woven together. And this brings us to the final chapter, the cultural message. Beyond survival, what does native hair tell us about humanity, resilience, and the legacy we must honor today? Across generations, native hair has carried more than beauty. It has carried survival, memory, and resilience. To outsiders, a braid may look simple, but here's the truth. Every strand is a story, every knot a prayer, every cut a chapter of history. The painful irony is clear. Scissors once stripped native children of their hair, hoping to sever them from their culture. But instead of erasing, it ignited resistance. What was meant as silence became a louder voice. What was cut down grew back stronger. You wouldn't believe this. The very act once used to erase identity has now become one of the most visible signs of its survival. Here's the timeless message. Native hair is more than tradition. It is a living philosophy. It teaches patience through growth, humility through care, balance through ritual, and strength through community. It ties individuals to ancestors and ancestors to the land. It shows us that resilience is not abstract. It is tangible, woven, and carried. Think of it this way. Western culture often looks at strength in iron, stone, or steel. But native wisdom shows strength in something softer, strands that bend in the wind, yet never break. Isn't that the real definition of resilience? And before we step into the present, pause for a moment. Because resilience is never only a word in the past. It is alive, moving, and visible today. At powwows, marches, and classrooms, braids swing proudly once more. Feathers rise again, ribbons shine, and each movement whispers a single truth. We are still here. Here's the lasting call. Native hair is not only heritage for native people, it is knowledge for us all. In a world rushing toward consumption and disposability, braids remind us of patience. In a society divided by noise, hair reminds us of silent bonds. In a climate struggling for balance, it reminds us that humans thrive when connected to nature. So let this be the takeaway. To honor native hair is to honor native life, native resilience, native wisdom. It is to honor survival itself. And as we close this story, let's carry its message forward. Protect Indigenous knowledge, respect Indigenous identity, and live in harmony with the strands that connect us all